Hello again, welcome back to the channel. Brendan here, aka Cliff Jumper, and our problem child is once again being problematic. So yeah, more battery and charging issues. Keep watching, let's see what mischief we get into and dive into problems of a 20-year-old car with nearly 200,000 miles. Last night, my son leaves to go to work, and I get a call about 10 minutes later. Dad, the car died going across an intersection. All right, so went up to rescue him, and click, 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 the telltale click of a car that doesn't have enough battery power to turn on the motor, which means probably the alternator has pooped out. But wait, didn't you just have the alternator rebuilt? Well, kind of. We took the alternator and had it looked at, and it definitely had a bad voltage regulator, which I covered in another video. It was physically broken, and the voltage regulator was replaced, and everything's been working just fine for a couple months, but now it's not. So we're doing a couple of things. So I took the battery out already. The battery's under warranty. The battery is back at the battery place, getting a recharge and a test. They're going to do the load test, make sure that the battery's not damaged somehow. And while we're doing that, I'm going to remove all of this stuff and clean the grounds, all the ground spots and the electrical contact spots for the big thick battery cables, because that is something that can introduce extra resistance and prevent the battery from charging. It can put excess load on the alternator and kill the alternator. So after we get the battery back, we'll pop it in. I will have already cleaned all the grounds and stuff and all the different connection points. Then we'll check it. We'll see if it's gonna work okay, if the alternator kicks in as it should. And at that point, if that's a no-go, then I will again yank the alternator out of here and we'll take it back to the alternator shop, which it has a warranty on it, so that's good. We'll have them take a peek at what's actually going on with that. But we will get to the bottom of what is happening here. But this is a really typical thing with a 1.8T motor, sadly. Many times this battery fuse block on the top here, they go bad and they'll be all melty. I think I need two hands to open this up. Give me a moment here. Come on. It's fighting me. There we go. So oftentimes these you'll see the fuses are burnt or the wires themselves are burned. There's a little bit of corrosion on that one. I don't really like that, but it's still within the realm of it should be functional. So the plastic's not melted. There's nothing indicating that it's overheating. None of the fusible links are broken, so that should be fine. This is nice and flexible. This is all new, at least this battery box is. Everything here is connected. So yeah, we'll go through, we'll check the connection points, pop it back together, assuming that the battery is good, and if not, it's under warranty, so we'll have a brand new battery. We'll throw that in and see where we go. But yeah, incidentally, the common symptoms is you could be driving along and for whatever reason, the battery light itself does not come on and it'll just lose power and die. That's really common with the 1.8T. It doesn't leave any codes. Or this is another symptom that it can do. You could be driving along and the battery light doesn't come on. However, your ABS light will flash and a check engine light will come up instead of the battery light. It's really weird. And the weirder thing is, usually when those pop up, there are codes stored in the computer. Not so in this case when there's a battery charging issue. So when we put the battery on, if I run it to scan for codes, there are not going to be any codes in there because it wasn't related to that stuff. So it's just a weird Volkswagen thing. I don't know why it's set up that way, but it is. So FYI, if you're going through the troubleshooting, trying to figure it out, be expecting that sort of shenanigans as you're diving in. If you have never gone down into this to try to figure out like all the grounds and the electrical connection, so basically there is this hold down. This is what keeps the battery in place, this bolt and plate. They would be right there. In order to get that out, you have to remove this panel, 2 Phillips head screws. That is
That's this guy here. So this one, 2 screws, this comes out of the way. Then you remove the 13mm bolt that is right there. That is the battery hold down clamp. That comes out, and then you can pull your battery up after 2 10mm bolts that keep the battery clamps in place. This lifts up out of the way, battery's out of the way. Now you have these 10mm bolts here. Undo those. Use a nice long extension just to make it easier for yourself. And then this will lift up off of this assembly here. There are normally a couple of connectors that keep it in place. My connectors have long since ceased to exist, so they're not there anymore. Which means we can finagle this thing out of the way. So watch all your little wires. This can come off the back side of the battery box. That comes off and out of the way, and then you've got access to the bottom of the battery box. This needs to be cleaned. I'm going to hit that with some anti-acid battery acid cleaner, and we'll deal with that. And now we have a clear view of what is underneath here. So if we follow the battery cables around, so here's our negative battery cable. You see it has a ground right there. So we're gonna unbolt that, take it off, hit it with some battery cleaner, some electrical contact cleaner. Make sure that it's not, and we'll hit it with probably a metal brush, wire brush, just to clean it. Make sure that that is solid. And then following the cable down, we want to make sure that it's not grounding out or doing anything weird. I do see a corrosion point right here. So looks like something above it might have been, maybe some battery acid was leaking onto that. That kind of makes sense. I see evidence of battery acid around here, so I'm going to spray some neutralizer to clean all that up. And following that cable down, that goes to the alternator itself, so we'll make sure that that connection point is clean as well. Then over here we've got our positive battery cable, and it connects back there to the top of the starter. So I'm gonna move the airbox out of the way in order to have better access there. Now the airbox has got a couple of bolts. There's one here. There's normally another one down here, but I've left mine out because it's just annoying. That would normally connect to the back of the battery box right there. It's not necessary, so just this one, and I'll undo the piping here just to be able to lift this out of the way and make sure that we're not breaking anything as we're going through this. And I'll get the airbox out of the way. We'll have better access to the starter and the wiring there. So we'll check all the condition of that. Down on this side, there's a snorkel that goes down to get cold air from behind the headlight, and it sticks into the airbox there. It's a little bit of a pain to get it out, but you push the airbox this way and then you can get it out. Now we have a good view of what is going on down here. This is a plastic connector that prevents the positive cable from grounding out on anything. Just at first glance, it looks pretty clean, but I'm not going to just let looks do it. So we're going to take it off, we're going to clean it, and we're going to clean that ground point down there as well. Clean everything. This is the exciter wire connector. It looks a little dirty, so we'll put some connector cleaner on that as well. Just make sure that this is all in tip-top shape. That there's a ground connector on the bottom wire here, and that looks a little dirty, so we'll clean these. Yeah, that definitely does not look as shiny and conductive as I would like it to be, so we're going to go ahead and hit that with contact cleaner. We'll hit that as well and brush it. This is one of the contact cleaners I recommend. CRC electronic cleaner. It's great for all electrical connections. For these types, you just spray it in, spray it on the pins on this end, spray it on that. Does its thing. The connector itself doesn't look too bad, but underneath it's definitely pretty dirty. So we will, again, try to get down there as best we can with a brush and clean it. I don't know how successful we'll be able to be because there's all sorts of stuff around it, but I'll do what I can.
20 minutes later.
I apologize for the high-pitched buzzing noise. These fans, they're amazing. USB powered, rechargeable, and boy, my daughter was using them at Comic-Con underneath her Mandalorian outfit to keep her cool and keep her visor from being fogged up. They worked really well. Now it's about 100 degrees outside here in Lakeside, California, and I'm working under shade, but it is still really hot, so that's what these are. Anyway, we got the battery back from being tested and we got the battery back from being charged and load tested, and it tests as good. So when I throw my meter on here just to see what we've got, stay there, stay in the meter please. All right, so we've got 12.76 volts. Now we're gonna turn on the car and see if, after cleaning all the terminals and cleaning the connections, if we actually have the alternator working or if the alternator's toast. So let's see here. The battery light is on, which it should be. Battery light goes off, so that's a good indicator. Well, let's see over here. Ah, look at that. Alternator. Well, no, I don't know. I mean, it's putting out 13 volts. It should be putting out like 13.7, so it's not putting out as much as it really should. So I'm gonna go with bad voltage regulator. Yeah, only 13.2. Let's see what happens when we rev it up. Yeah, it's definitely low. It should be putting out like 13.7 right now. So I'm gonna go with, we need to yank the alternator and take that to have it checked out. So let's do that. Fortunately, we just did the alternator not too long ago, so everything's pretty fresh in my memory. We're gonna take off the throttle body. That gives us access to yank it straight up and out. We're also gonna take off this little piece here. That gives us a little bit more room to get in and undo the connections there. So those are the two keys to getting an alternator out. You do not need to jack the car up. You don't need to put the front into service position. It's it's pretty straightforward. So I would say maybe 20 minutes we'll have it out. Okay, the trick with the belt tensioner, there's a nub on it right there, and that's where this 15mm wrench will go on. And you push back on it like so, and as you do, then there's going to be a hole that goes right through that nub, and you can line it up with the hole right there, if you can see that. That's the hole we want to aim for. And then you can get something like this as a pin that'll stick through the nub, and you can lock it in place. See how that goes all the way through there? So I'm gonna, this is just a really small like Allen screw kind of thing. So off tension. So now you can see that screw is through all the way into that hole there, holding tension off of this, and that means I can release the belt, and now we can deal with the bolts holding it in place and the connections on the back side. So I've loosened this, and I just unplugged the one connection here, just give me a little bit more room. And that gives me a pretty straight shot down to be able to reach the, I believe it's a 13mm bolt that holds this electrical connector in place. Yes, indeed. So now we have these up here. I think they're 13mm also, one up top and one at bottom, and then we should be able to get the alternator out. Finally, we should be able to convince the alternator that it wants to be out of here. All right, we got the alternator out, so let's take it to the alternator repair shop and have them find out what's wrong with this thing. Yep, just hit 190,000 miles.
Destination.
And I've reached my destination, discount battery. So yeah, here to see what we can do with that alternator.
20 minutes later.
All right, so a little talk with our friends here at Discount Battery on Fairmount in San Diego. And they tested the regulator. The regulator's good, but the stator is not looking good. So he's gonna open up the alternator, check the diodes inside. He said that there's at least 3 diodes in the 120 amp alternator. So he'll test them all out, make sure that it's in good shape, rebuild it. It's gonna cost me 60 bucks for the rebuild. So pretty good deal rather than spending like $350 or $400 for a new alternator, and it'll be all up to spec and checked out. So that's where this is at. He's going to be about an hour, so we'll leave it and come back after lunch. And then he also recommended that we take a hydrometer to each cell of the battery that we just had load tested. Even though it load tested as good, he said that there could be an individual cell in the battery that is bad, and that could cause the alternator to overheat and to mess up the stator and all that. So anyway, we'll continue this in a little bit when we pick it up.
2 hours later.
Okay, so good news. The stator was fine. There was a bad diode, so that was causing it to not work correctly. Easy repair, and we got the alternator back behind us, ready to go. Head back to the house, pop it in, make sure that the battery has a full slow charge, so everything is starting off at 100%. I'm also going to check the battery cells with a hydrometer by recommendation of the guys here at Discount Battery Company. By the way, their number, if you're in the San Diego area and you have some issues, they rebuild starters, they rebuild alternators, they do electrical checks of your entire charging system, and they're excellent at it. Their phone number is 619-280-2572, and they're located at 3203 Fairmount Avenue. So if you're in San Diego, highly recommend them. Not sponsored or anything, I'm just a very satisfied customer. So let's head back, pop this into the Jetta, and get things going. So we got our alternator back from getting rebuilt. Everything is spinning nicely, not making any weird noises, so that's good. Now this is the trickiest bit, getting it back in there. I've sprayed a little bit of grease on the bracket because they do not like to slide back in nicely. So getting them lined up so that the bolts actually go through is the biggest pain in the neck here. It could take me a while. So just, if you're doing this, just lean into it. It's gonna suck. It's gonna take a while, most likely. If it doesn't, count yourself very fortunate. .1 volts, yes. All right, so I would say that is mischief managed and a job well done. We're back up to the races. Everything's good. All right, obviously I have a little bit of cleanup work to do to put everything back in order, but now that it is running and testing up to spec, we're in good shape. So I'm gonna get this all together and deliver it to my son at his work so he can drive it home in the middle of the night, so I don't have to go pick him up in the middle of the night. But you know, that's what dads do if they have to. Anyway, hit like, subscribe, maybe hit that notification bell over there if you would. That helps me out a lot. And if you are even remotely interested or curious about what shenanigans I get into next, we've got so many projects left to do. So this was not an expected project. This was it had to get done right now because we need the car to work. So back on the road. Thank you, and I will see you next time. God bless you. Bye-bye.
And on that terrible disappointment, it's time to say goodbye. We'll be back.